So Canadians are absolutely not just furious at the United States for their behavior, but the Canadians have taken the upper hand right now, and we see the United States ambassador to Canada just like whining in public, and he actually reached out to the head of Meidas, Canada, Charlie Angus, leader of the resistance, and wrote a letter where he kind of self-selected a certain portion of a Charlie Angus social media post where, after the death of Charlie Kirk, Charlie Angus rightfully called for and condemned political violence in all of its forms, and just called that people need to be brought together. And then Charlie Angus later on was very critical, obviously, of the type of right-wing rhetoric declaring civil war on the left and trying to use the death of Charlie Kirk as a way to exploit the situation. So Pete Hoekstra, United States Ambassador to Canada, wrote a letter where clearly on his radar. And since then, Charlie Angus has done a video that went viral going over the letter and sending a message to Hoekstra. Hoekstra was born in the Netherlands. He's an immigrant. He came over to the United States as a kid. If you know the history of the Netherlands and the Dutch, who were starving to death in World War II as a result of Germany, you'll know that Canada was instrumental in saving the Dutch, staving the starving people there from Hoekstra's town as well, where Hoekstra grew up. I want to bring in Charlie Angus right now, leader of the resistance and leader of Meidas Canada, because I want to get your take on it. But first, Charlie, I think I should show the video that has since gone viral, the video you made where you go through the letter that you received. This is going viral everywhere across the world, in Canada and especially in the Netherlands right now. So let's play that, and then I want to get your take. Let's play the video.
Dive a little deeper into it. So you write, on September 11th, I want to personally extend my gratitude for your public words of condolence and support for Charlie Kirk and his family. I also thank you for your strong words condemning the horrific act of violence that took his life. Political violence of any kind has no place in the world. I appreciate your continued support for the shared values that define both our countries. I like that line. I appreciate your continued support for the shared values that define both of our countries. Sincerely, Ambassador Pete Hoekstra. Pete, I was one of the first people in Canada to speak out at the time of Charlie Kirk's murder, because I was very worried that it would lead to an escalation of rhetoric and counter-violence, that we've seen your country stumble into this darkness of political threat and menace. And that was one of the reasons I felt it really important to say we have to pull back. Mr. Kirk, to me, was a provocateur. Mr. Kirk stirred the pot for the MAGA machine, but nobody deserves to die. Violence is a dangerous thing. So I appreciate that you understood my sentiment in writing that, but I'm surprised that you didn't write about the other elements that I talked about Mr. Kirk's death, about how right after he died, immediately the MAGA machine began to target political enemies and began to ramp up really dangerous rhetoric. Far-right nutter Laura Loomer talking about, going after all the left. What's all the left, Pete? I don't know. Steve Bannon, who's the Dark Lord of your movement, talking about the time was here now to take the blowtorch to the universities. What did the universities do, Pete? That's really concerning language. Now we see Donald Trump is saying he's going to make Antifa a terrorist organization. What the heck is Antifa? You mean anti-fascist? Well, Pete and I talked to you in our last video about this. Our family and all our relatives in Canada, we come from a long line of fascist fighters, particularly here in Regina, home of the Regina Rifles. Oh yeah, those Farmer Johns were the first ones to hit the beaches of Normandy, and they didn't stop until they freed your family in the Netherlands. So the rising language coming out of MAGA at this time is very concerning. So if we want to talk about shared values, I'd love to sit down and have a few beers with you, Pete, and we could talk about how we actually build diplomatic discourse and democratic discourse between our two countries. Because what really surprises me about your role in Canada is the way you've been gaslighting us. Maybe you just don't understand who Canadians are. Maybe you need to come with me on the road to places like Regina, to the Comox Valley, to Edmonton, to Prince Edward Island. Because when you say in a public meeting that you're disappointed in Canadians because we don't have passion for our relationship with the United States? In what world are you living in, Pete? Passion. We are extremely passionate, and we are extremely passionate when we see the rule of law under threat. We are extremely passionate when we see a government saying that they could move our border. And we are extremely passionate when we see a president who's threatening to use economic force to break our nation. You're going to understand, Pete, that's never, ever, ever going to happen. We are very passionate about the defense of democracy. So I'm going to ask you politely, and out of respect for the beautiful letter you sent me, is not to make those false claims about our nation again, because we don't want to have to continue this bitter batter fight with MAGA when we want to get on with building a nation. And if America doesn't want to build a better nation and a better relationship with us, then we will look to Europe, and we will look to Mexico, and we will look to other democratic allies. But you are the neighbor that's on our unguarded border. And we now feel that you're no longer a friend, and you ceased being a friend a long time ago. So the gaslighting doesn't help. So let's just go back to the letter. I take it very seriously that you sent me that letter. And this is my offer, Pete. Let's sit down and talk, you and me. I suggest we do it informally without all your staff and all the blah, blah rhetoric. How about we go out for a couple of beers and we talk about Canada and the United States? And I explain to you how passionate we are, and you can explain to me whatever you think from MAGAs. But I think at the end of the day, Pete, you know, I may have to help start packing your bags because you're not getting it right now. I want to help you, Pete. Reach out to me. You can contact me. You sent me a letter. Let's do this. Let's sit down and talk. Let's have a couple of beers, and let's see if we can figure this out. Because, Pete, you don't like the term elbows up, but we're elbows up all the time when it comes to defending democracy. And we are passionate, and we will fight. And we don't need violent rhetoric to do it. We need to be willing to stand up for the rule of law. So, Pete, here's my hand. It's in friendship. Reach out. Call me anytime. I'm around.
Charlie, you saw that video right there. Talk to us. What made you make that video? Where do things stand now? And I know Canadians are fired up right now. I think they would like to see Hoekstra fired and could go back to the United States. Well, Ben,